The movie is about Clyde Alexander Shelton, an engineer living happily with his wife and daughter in Philadelphia. One night, two robbers, Clarence Darby and Rupert Ames, break into their house. Ames just wanted to steal from the Shelton family and leave, but Darby had different plans. After hitting Clyde with a baseball bat, Darby tied Clyde's hands and stabbed him in the stomach. Darby's cruelty didn't stop there. He made Clyde watch as he killed Clyde's wife and daughter. Clyde couldn't do anything to save his family. In the end, the pain from the stab wound made Clyde lose consciousness. The robbery did not go as planned. A few days later, Darby and Ames were arrested. Before the trial, Clyde met with a lawyer named Nicholas Rice, or Nick. Clyde gave Nick his notes about the robbery and murders committed by Ames and Darby. Clyde wanted them to be severely punished for their crimes. Unfortunately, Nick's explanation dashed Clyde's hopes. Nick said there wasn't enough evidence to convict Darby and Ames. Also, Darby had hired a good lawyer for his defense. If Clyde insisted on suing Darby and Ames, it would be a waste of time and money, and they might even be found not guilty in the end. Nick explained that he had made a deal with Darby and his lawyer. Ames would be charged with robbery and murder, so he would get a heavier sentence. Darby would only be charged with murder and face a maximum of 5 years in prison. This made Clyde very angry. He insisted that he saw what Darby and Ames did to his family and remembered their faces clearly. However, Nick said Clyde's testimony was not enough without evidence. He explained that this is how justice works. Clyde's disappointment grew during the trial. As expected, the judge said there wasn't enough evidence to give Darby and Ames long sentences. Ames was sentenced to 10 years in prison and then to death. Darby was sentenced to only 5 years in prison. Clyde was furious with the verdict. He felt betrayed by both the justice system and Nick. After the trial, while Nick was talking to the media, Darby thanked him and shook his hand. Darby said they couldn't fight fate. Nick, confused by Darby's words, didn't realize that Clyde was watching from a distance. 10 years later, Ames was about to be executed by lethal injection. Nick, along with officers and court officials, watched the execution. The syringe was ready, and Ames was lying down, prepared for his sentence. However, the execution, which was supposed to be painless, turned out to be the opposite. Ames was in great pain after the injection and died horribly. The events of Ames' execution were investigated. A vial of medicine was found, and it was suspected to be evidence of murder during Ames' execution. The words "can't fight fate" on the bottle pointed to Darby. The police went to Darby's house. At the same time, Darby received a call from an unknown person. The caller told Darby that the police were on their way to his house. Darby was unsure until the caller mentioned the illegal drugs he was using and the presence of an underage girl in his apartment. The caller even threatened Darby with life in prison. Darby had no choice but to follow the caller's instructions. The caller told Darby to take a police car with a paralyzed officer inside. When Darby found the police car, he threatened the officer with a gun to drive him to an empty warehouse. At the warehouse, the officer revealed his identity as Clyde. Darby tried to kill Clyde with the gun he took from the car, not knowing it had a needle covered in tetrodotoxin. The poison made Darby unable to move, but he was still conscious and could feel pain. He was in the same condition as Clyde during the robbery. Clyde took Darby into the barn, tied him to a table, and started cutting off Darby's body parts one by one. Clyde recorded the entire process. When the police found Darby's dismembered body, it was easy to connect it to Clyde, especially since the warehouse was owned by Clyde. The police went to Clyde's home, where he surrendered without resistance. During the search, the police discovered that Clyde had spent the past 10 years studying the law in depth. In prison, Clyde asks Nick for a new mattress. He promises an honest confession in return. Nick refuses at first, but changes his mind when he learns Clyde is threatening his family with a video of him torturing and killing Darby. Nick agrees to give Clyde the new mattress. The new mattress makes other inmates, especially Clyde's cellmate, jealous. Even after getting the mattress, Clyde does not give an honest confession in court. Defending himself without a lawyer, Clyde argues that the court lacks full evidence to convict him of murder. The judge agrees and plans to acquit him. However, Clyde claps and insults the court, saying this is why the law cannot be enforced. Although he was supposed to be acquitted, Clyde is imprisoned for insulting the court and judge. Later, Clyde meets Nick again to make another deal. This time, he asks for a steak lunch and an iPod in exchange for the location of Darby's lawyer. Nick refuses at first, but changes his mind when he learns the lawyer has been missing for 3 days. Nick is forced to meet Clyde's demands again. Clyde's lunch is supposed to be delivered at 1 p.m., but due to the prison security system, it arrives 8 minutes late. When the lunch finally arrives, Clyde reveals the location of Darby's lawyer, which is less than 15 minutes from the prison. Unfortunately, when Nick and the police arrive at the location, they find the lawyer dead. The lawyer was locked in a bunker with oxygen that would run out at exactly 1:15 p.m. If Clyde's lunch had not been late, the lawyer might have been saved. On the other hand, Clyde enjoys his lunch, sharing his steak with his cellmate. But surprisingly, after eating, Clyde kills his cellmate with the steak bone. Clyde is then put into solitary confinement. District Attorney Jonas Cantrell and Nick, working on the case, believe Clyde has a partner helping him. They investigate and meet a former CIA agent who explains that Clyde used to work for the CIA. He mentions that Clyde can kill anyone even from prison and suggests that being in prison might be part of Clyde's plan. The former CIA agent advises Nick and Cantrell to kill Clyde to stop him. Clyde's actions continue. He blows up a car used by Nick's assistant, killing everyone inside. Nick, furious, goes to Clyde's cell and beats him up, begging him to stop the murders. Nick gives Clyde a beaded bracelet that Clyde's daughter made, saying his wife and daughter wouldn't want to see him become a murderer. Clyde rejects this, saying his wife and daughter can't feel anything because they are dead. After the funeral of his assistant and colleague, killed in the car bomb, Cantrell is attacked with a machine gun, and a bomb drops on his car, killing him. Things get out of control, and Nick plans to step down. He wants to retire, but news of Clyde's attack spreads. The mayor decides to increase security and appoints Nick as district attorney, so he has full power to stop Clyde. The investigation continues because the police and Nick believe Clyde has helped. They find a bomb in a briefcase that Clyde placed under the meeting room at the town hall, where the mayor was going to have a sudden meeting. Fortunately, the bomb was defused. Evidence showed that Clyde had a workshop near the prison. Nick searches the workshop and finds a tunnel connecting to several cell rooms, including Clyde's solitary cell. Clyde, at the workshop, is shocked to see the bomb at the town hall didn't explode. He returns to his cell through the tunnel and meets Nick. Nick says he won't make any more deals with Clyde and tries to change Clyde's mind, but it doesn't work. Nick leaves the cell just as the bomb case Clyde hid under the bed explodes. Before the flames engulf him, Clyde looks at the beaded bracelet his daughter made. The film ends with Nick attending his daughter's musical, something he hasn't done in a long time. The movie ends. So the moral of the story is, if you're going to plot a decade-long revenge, make sure your lunch arrives on time.